2025 is not just another year on the calendar. It's a blank canvas waiting for the colors of your courage, passion, and determination. It's the year you decide to show up fully, not as someone who's perfect, but as someone who's brave enough to be seen. To make this the greatest year of your life, you have to start with one undeniable truth. Your worthiness is not negotiable. No achievement, title, or accolade will make you more worthy. You are enough right now, as you are. The real question is, are you willing to live like you believe that? Let's talk about vulnerability because it's the birthplace of everything meaningful. The big dreams you have for 2025, they're going to require you to step into the arena, knowing full well that you might fail. And that's terrifying, isn't it? But here's the thing. If you wait for certainty, for guarantees, you'll miss out on all the things that make life extraordinary. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's your greatest strength because it's where courage begins. When we hear the word vulnerability, it's often accompanied by discomfort, resistance, or even fear. It's a word that many of us associate with weakness, exposure, or the potential to be hurt. But what if we flipped that narrative? What if, instead of seeing vulnerability as something to avoid, we began to see it as the birthplace of all that is meaningful, powerful, and transformative in our lives? Vulnerability is not a flaw or a shortcoming. It is a strength, a profound superpower that allows us to live authentically, connect deeply, and take bold steps toward our dreams. To embrace vulnerability is to embrace life itself, because to be alive is to be exposed, to risk, and to feel deeply. And that is where the magic happens. In a world that often rewards perfectionism and control, vulnerability feels counterintuitive. We're taught to keep our guard up, to protect ourselves from judgment or rejection, and to present only the polished, curated versions of our lives. But let's be honest, that's exhausting. Pretending to have it all together not only isolates us, but also robs us of the joy that comes from being truly seen. When we let down our walls and allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we give others permission to do the same. We create space for connection, trust, and understanding. Vulnerability is the moment you admit you don't have all the answers, yet you show up anyway. It's the conversation where you finally say what you've been holding back, not knowing how it will be received. It's the decision to chase a dream that feels impossibly big, even when failure is a possibility. It's standing in front of someone and saying, "This is me, all of me," without the masks or defenses. So vulnerability is terrifying, yes, but it's also liberating. What makes vulnerability so powerful is that it requires courage. Every time you choose to be vulnerable, you're choosing courage over fear. It's easy to stay in the safety of what's familiar, to avoid taking risks, and to shy away from situations where you might be hurt. But there's no growth in that space. There's no creativity, no connection, no joy. The things that make life worth living, love, belonging, purpose, and creativity, all require us to step into vulnerability. Think about the moments in your life that have been the most meaningful. Perhaps it was confessing your feelings to someone you loved, even though you didn't know if they felt the same way. Or maybe it was taking a leap of faith to pursue a career, a passion, or a dream that others doubted. Those moments were likely filled with uncertainty and fear. Yet they shaped you, taught you, and brought you closer to the person you are today. That's the power of vulnerability. It asks us to take risks, but it rewards us with experiences that enrich our lives. And finally, how do we find vulnerability in our daily lives? When we resist vulnerability, we miss out on so much. We stay in relationships that feel safe but lack depth. We settle for jobs that pay the bills but don't ignite our passion. We avoid expressing our true selves, fearing judgment or rejection. But here's the truth. Vulnerability is not what weakens us. Our fear of it does. When we numb our vulnerability, we also numb our joy, creativity, and connection. To embrace vulnerability as your superpower, you must first unlearn the belief that it's a weakness. Start by acknowledging the moments when you feel most vulnerable and leaning into them instead of pulling away. Notice how your instinct might be to retreat, to shut down, or to distract yourself. Instead, pause. Sit with the discomfort. Allow yourself to feel it fully. This practice of staying present with your vulnerability is where your strength begins to grow. One of the most beautiful aspects of vulnerability is its ability to foster connection. When you're willing to be vulnerable, you're saying to others, I trust you with my truth. That trust builds bridges between people in a way that nothing else can. Think about the relationships in your life that feel the most meaningful. Chances are those are the ones where you've allowed yourself to be seen. Not just the good parts, but the messy, imperfect, and raw parts as well. Vulnerability is the glue that holds those connections together. But vulnerability isn't just about relationships with others. It's also about your relationship with yourself. It's about being honest with yourself about what you want, what you fear, and what you need. It's about acknowledging your own worthiness, even when you feel like you don't measure up. Self-compassion is a critical part of vulnerability. When you can offer yourself kindness and understanding, you create a safe space within yourself to take risks, make mistakes, and grow. Embracing vulnerability also means letting go of perfectionism. Perfectionism is the armor we wear to protect ourselves from criticism, but it's also what keeps us stuck. When you're constantly striving for perfection, you're not allowing yourself to be fully human. You're not allowing yourself to try new things, to learn, or to fail. Vulnerability invites us to release the need for perfection and instead embrace the messiness of life. It's in that messiness that we discover our resilience, creativity, and capacity for joy. In your journey to make 2025 the greatest year of your life, vulnerability will be your greatest ally. It will push you to step outside your comfort zone and take risks that feel uncomfortable but necessary. It will encourage you to have honest conversations, even when they're hard. It will remind you that it's okay to not have it all figured out, and that uncertainty is not something to fear, but something to embrace. Vulnerability is also an act of resistance in a culture that tells us to hide our struggles and project an image of invincibility. When you choose to be vulnerable, you're challenging that narrative. You're saying that it's okay to be human, to have flaws, and to experience pain. And in doing so, you create a ripple effect. Your vulnerability inspires others to be vulnerable, creating a world where authenticity and connection are valued over perfection and isolation. As you navigate the year ahead, remind yourself that vulnerability is not about the outcome. It's about the process. It's not about whether you succeed or fail. It's about whether you showed up and gave it your all. It's about the courage to say, this is important to me and I'm going to try no matter what. That courage is what will make 2025 a year of growth, transformation, and meaning. So, as you step into this new year, make a commitment to embrace vulnerability. Be willing to take risks, to share your truth, and to face uncertainty with an open heart. Remember that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to your strength. It's the key to living a life that is rich, authentic, and deeply fulfilling. And it is the superpower that will make this year the greatest year of your life. In life, we are constantly making decisions. Some are small, almost imperceptible choices. What to eat for breakfast, whether to take the scenic route home, or how we spend a quiet evening. Others are monumental, shaping the trajectory of our lives, what career path to pursue, who to build relationships with, or where to plant our roots. Each decision, whether big or small, contributes to the story of our lives. And at the heart of these decisions lies one critical question: what do you value? Your values are the invisible compass guiding your actions, your priorities, and the way you navigate the world. But here's the thing: many people live their lives without ever pausing to truly define what their values are. They inherit beliefs from their families, society, or culture, and those beliefs quietly shape their choices, often without their conscious awareness. Defining your values is about stepping back from all of that external noise and asking yourself, what truly matters to me? It's about choosing a life of intention rather than drifting through one of reaction. When you know your values, you have a North Star. You gain clarity in moments of uncertainty and strength in times of challenge. Without clear values, it's easy to feel lost or overwhelmed. Decisions become harder because you don't have a clear framework to lean on. You might find yourself saying yes to things that drain you or pursuing goals that don't align with who you are. But when your values are defined and deeply rooted, they become your guide. They help you filter out the noise, focus on what truly matters, and live a life of authenticity and meaning. End quote. For more inspiration, defining your values is not about perfection or creating a rigid set of rules. It's about discovering what lights you up, what drives you, and what aligns with your deepest sense of self. It's about peeling back the layers of expectations and discovering what you stand for at your core. This process requires honesty, introspection, and a willingness to be vulnerable. It asks you to confront questions like, what do I care about? What brings me joy? What do I want my legacy to be? When you start this journey, you may feel overwhelmed by the sheer breadth of possibilities. There are so many values to consider: integrity, compassion, creativity, courage, freedom, love, justice, growth, connection, and so much more. How do you choose? The answer lies in listening to your heart and noticing what resonates. Pay attention to the moments in your life when you've felt most alive, fulfilled, or at peace. What was happening in those moments? What values were being honored? Equally important is reflecting on the times when you've felt disconnected, frustrated, or unfulfilled. Often, those feelings arise when your values are being compromised or ignored. For example, if creativity is one of your core values, working in an environment that stifles innovation may leave you feeling stuck. If connection is deeply important to you, relationships that lack depth or authenticity may feel hollow. These moments of discomfort are valuable teachers, pointing you toward what truly matters to you. Once you've identified your values, the next step is to integrate them into your daily life. It's one thing to know what you value, but it's another to live in alignment with those values consistently. This requires courage, commitment, and a willingness to make tough choices. Living by your values often means saying no to things that don't align, even when it's uncomfortable. It means standing up for what you believe in, even when it's unpopular. It means prioritizing what's meaningful to you, even when it requires sacrifice. For instance, if one of your core values is family, you might prioritize quality time with loved ones over long hours at work, even if it means earning less money. If growth is a key value for you, you might take on challenges that push you out of your comfort zone, even when it feels scary. If integrity is important, you might choose honesty over convenience, even when it's hard. These decisions may not always be easy, but they will bring you closer to a life that feels authentic and fulfilling. Living in alignment with your values also means being intentional about how you spend your time, energy, and resources. Time is our most precious commodity, and how we use it reflects what we value. If your values include health and wellness, how much time are you dedicating to exercise, nutrition, and self-care? If connection is important, Are you nurturing your relationships or letting them take a back seat to other priorities? If you value learning, are you making time to read, explore, and expand your knowledge? Other obstacles, such as finding the time. The beauty of living by your values is that it simplifies decision-making. When faced with a choice, you can ask yourself, does this align with my values? If the answer is yes, it's likely a good fit. If the answer is no, it may be worth reconsidering. This clarity can help you set boundaries, focus on what truly matters, and let go of what doesn't serve you. But let's be real. Living by your values isn't always straightforward. Life is messy, and there will be times when your values come into conflict. For example, you might value both career success and quality time with your family, but a big work project demands late nights and weekends. Or you might value honesty and kindness, but telling the truth in a certain situation feels harsh. These moments of tension are challenging, but they're also opportunities for growth. They ask you to reflect, prioritize, and make choices that honor your values as best as possible in the given circumstances. It's also important to recognize that your values may evolve over time. The person you were 5 years ago may not be the person you are today, and that's okay. Life experiences shape us, and our priorities shift as we grow. The key is to remain curious and open, regularly revisiting your values and adjusting as needed. This ongoing process ensures that your life continues to reflect who you are and what matters most to you. One of the most profound aspects of defining and living by your values is the impact it has on your sense of purpose. When your actions align with your values, you experience a sense of integrity and wholeness. You feel grounded, confident, and at peace because you're living in a way that's true to yourself. This alignment also fuels motivation and resilience. When you know why you're doing something and it aligns with your values, you're more likely to persevere through challenges and setbacks. Values also have a ripple effect on the people around you. When you live authentically and in alignment with your values, you inspire others to do the same. Your actions become a testament to what's possible when you live with intention and purpose. You create a positive impact in your relationships, your community, and the world at large. To define your values and let them guide every decision is to take ownership of your life. It's a declaration that you will not be swayed by external pressures or superficial expectations. It's a commitment to living a life of integrity, meaning, and authenticity. It's an act of self-respect and self-love. You deliberately decide to cross that threshold into self-love. As you embark on this journey, remember that it's not about getting it perfect. You will make mistakes, face challenges, and encounter moments of doubt. But every step you take toward aligning your life with your values is a step toward a life that feels true to who you are. It's a step toward freedom, fulfillment, and joy. So take the time to define your values. Reflect on what matters most to you, and let those values guide your decisions, your actions, and your path forward. In doing so, you will create a life that is not only meaningful, but also deeply, authentically yours. And that is the foundation for making 2025 and every year to come the greatest year of your life. Cultivating meaningful connections and wholehearted living is not just an aspiration. It is the essence of what it means to be truly alive. At our core, humans are wired for connection. We long to feel seen, heard, and valued by others. Relationships, whether they are with friends, family, colleagues, or even fleeting interactions with strangers, shape our experiences, influence our happiness, and give our lives depth and meaning. To live wholeheartedly is to show up authentically in those connections, to embrace the messiness of being human, and to foster relationships that nourish our souls. In a world that often feels dominated by surface-level interactions and digital distractions, meaningful connections can sometimes feel elusive. We scroll through social media, glancing at curated snapshots of other people's lives while yearning for deeper, more authentic bonds. We attend gatherings, but our conversations remain at the surface, safely distant from vulnerability. We tell ourselves we're too busy to invest in our relationships, yet we feel the ache of disconnection. The truth is, meaningful connections don't just happen. They require intention, effort, and a willingness to be vulnerable. Number 2, make an effort. Vulnerability is the cornerstone of meaningful connections. To connect with others on a deep level, you must be willing to let them see you as you are. Not the polished, curated version of yourself, but the real, imperfect, beautifully flawed human being that you are. This can be terrifying. It requires courage to open up, to share your fears, dreams, and struggles, and to risk the possibility of rejection or misunderstanding. But it is also profoundly liberating. When you allow yourself to be seen, you invite others to do the same, creating a space where true connection can flourish. Wholehearted living begins with self-awareness. You cannot cultivate meaningful connections with others until you have a strong connection with yourself. This means taking the time to reflect on your values, your desires, and your needs. It means practicing self-compassion and embracing your own imperfections. When you show up for yourself with kindness and authenticity, you create a foundation for showing up for others in the same way. It's important to recognize that wholehearted living is not about perfection. It's not about having everything figured out or always saying the right thing. It's about being present, honest, and intentional in your interactions. It's about choosing to engage with life fully, even when it's messy or uncomfortable. It's about prioritizing what matters most and letting go of what doesn't serve you. One of the most powerful ways to cultivate meaningful connections is through active listening. So often, we listen with the intent to respond rather than the intent to understand. We're busy formulating our next point or sharing our own experiences, and we miss the opportunity to truly hear the other person. Active listening is about being fully present in the moment, setting aside distractions, and giving the speaker your undivided attention. It's about asking thoughtful questions, reflecting back what you've heard, and showing genuine curiosity about their perspective. When you listen actively, you communicate to the other person that they matter. You validate their feelings and experiences, creating a space where they feel safe to open up. This kind of deep listening fosters trust and strengthens the bond between you. It's a simple yet powerful way to nurture your relationships and build a sense of connection. Empathy is another key ingredient in meaningful connections. To empathize is to step into someone else's shoes, to see the world through their eyes and to feel with them. It's about setting aside judgment and offering understanding and support. Empathy requires humility and a willingness to put aside your own perspective to truly be there for another person. It's a gift you give to others, and it's one of the most profound ways to show love and care. Cultivating meaningful connections also means being intentional about the people you surround yourself with. The energy and values of those closest to you have a significant impact on your life. Are the people in your inner circle supportive, kind, and aligned with your values? Do they encourage you to be your best self and challenge you to grow? Building meaningful connections involves investing your time and energy in relationships that uplift and inspire you. But meaningful connections are not one-sided. They require mutual effort and reciprocity. It's not enough to expect others to reach out, listen, or support you. You must also show up for them. Be the friend, partner, or family member who is reliable, kind, and present. Celebrate their successes, comfort them in their struggles, and let them know you value them. Small acts of kindness, thoughtfulness, and consistency can go a long way in nurturing strong, lasting bonds. Wholehearted living also involves embracing the imperfections and challenges that come with relationships. No connection is without its ups and downs. Misunderstandings, conflicts, and disappointments are inevitable, but they don't have to derail your relationships. Instead, see them as opportunities for growth and deeper understanding. Approach conflicts with curiosity rather than defensiveness. Be willing to apologize, forgive, and move forward with a renewed commitment to the relationship. In addition to your relationships with others, cultivating meaningful connections extends to your relationship with the world around you. Wholehearted living means engaging with your community, contributing to causes you care about, and finding ways to make a positive impact. It's about recognizing that we are all interconnected and that our actions, no matter how small, ripple outward. Volunteering, supporting local initiatives, or simply being kind to strangers are ways to strengthen your sense of connection and purpose. Technology, while a powerful tool for staying connected, can also be a barrier to meaningful relationships if not used mindfully. It's easy to fall into the trap of shallow interactions or to prioritize screen time over face-to-face connection. To cultivate meaningful connections, be intentional about how you use technology. Use it to enhance your relationships, not replace them. Schedule regular phone calls, video chats, or in-person meetups. Put away your devices during conversations and focus on being fully present. Wholehearted living also involves setting boundaries and protecting your energy. Not every connection will be meaningful, and that's okay. It's important to recognize when a relationship is no longer serving you and to let go of those that drain or harm you. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are tools for preserving your well-being and ensuring that your relationships are healthy and balanced. To cultivate meaningful connections and live wholeheartedly, you must also make space for joy, gratitude, and play. Life is not just about achieving goals or overcoming challenges. It's about savoring the moments that bring you happiness and fulfillment. Laugh with your loved ones, celebrate the small victories, and take time to appreciate the beauty in everyday life. Joy and gratitude are contagious, and they have the power to deepen your connections and enhance your overall well-being. Ultimately, meaningful connections and wholehearted living are about showing up as your authentic self, embracing vulnerability, and prioritizing what truly matters. They are about creating a life rich with love, trust, and understanding. They are about choosing courage over comfort, presence over distraction, and authenticity over pretense. When you commit to cultivating meaningful connections and living wholeheartedly, you transform not only your own life, but also the lives of those around you. You become a source of light, warmth, and inspiration. You create a ripple effect of positivity and connection that extends far beyond yourself. And in doing so, you make 2025 and every year a year of profound fulfillment and joy. Owning your story takes courage, no matter who's watching. It requires an unflinching willingness to confront the truth of who you are, where you've been, and where you're going. It means standing in the entirety of your experiences, claiming both the triumphs and the struggles as your own. To own your story is to take responsibility for your narrative, not in the sense of control or perfection, but in the sense of authenticity and acceptance. It is one of the most profound acts of bravery a person can undertake, and yet it is also one of the most challenging. Making small changes to our living environments. Why is owning your story so difficult? Because it demands that you face your vulnerabilities head-on. It requires you to acknowledge the parts of yourself that you'd rather keep hidden, the mistakes, the failures, the wounds that have yet to heal. It asks you to relinquish the masks you've worn to protect yourself and to embrace the messiness of being human. And it demands that you do all of this in a world that often rewards conformity and punishes authenticity. To own your story is to step into the spotlight, knowing full well that some will cheer, some will jeer, and others will remain indifferent. It is to say, "This is who I am," even when you're not sure how your truth will be received. It's time to let the light in. It's time to live the truth. That is what makes life bright. One of the greatest barriers to owning your story is the fear of judgment. We live in a culture that often equates vulnerability with weakness and imperfection with failure. This makes it tempting to edit our stories, to present only the parts that are polished and palatable while hiding the rest. But this kind of selective storytelling is not ownership. It is performance. True ownership requires you to embrace your story in its entirety, including the parts that make you uncomfortable. It means saying, "Yes, I made that mistake. Yes, I've struggled with that challenge. And yes, those experiences have shaped me into the person I am today." When you own your story, you reclaim your power. Instead of allowing others to define you based on their perceptions or judgments, you define yourself. You take control of your narrative, choosing how you interpret and share your experiences. This doesn't mean rewriting history or ignoring the pain of the past. It means reframing your story in a way that empowers you rather than diminishes you. It means recognizing that your worth is not determined by the chapters of your story, but by the courage it takes to tell it. Owning your story also means embracing the idea that your story is still unfolding. It is not a fixed script, but an evolving narrative, shaped by every choice you make and every experience you encounter. This is both liberating and daunting. On one hand, it means you have the power to change your story, to write new chapters, and to redefine what your life means. On the other hand, it means letting go of the illusion of control and accepting the uncertainty of the future. Owning your story requires you to find a balance between agency and surrender, between taking responsibility for your life and acknowledging the factors that are beyond your control. Another challenge of owning your story is the temptation to compare your narrative to others. In a world where social media often presents an idealized version of reality, it's easy to feel like your story isn't enough. You might compare your struggles to someone else's successes or your journey to someone else's destination. But comparison is the thief of authenticity. Your story is uniquely yours, and its value does not depend on how it measures up to someone else's. When you own your story, you let go of the need to compete or conform. You recognize that your worth is not determined by external validation, but by your willingness to live authentically. Here's the promise. Owning your story is not just an act of self-empowerment. It is also an act of service. When you share your story with honesty and vulnerability, you create a space for others to do the same. You give them permission to embrace their own humanity and to find strength in their struggles. Your story becomes a bridge, connecting you to others and reminding them that they are not alone. This is why owning your story matters. It's not just about you, it's about the impact your authenticity has on the world around you. But make no mistake, owning your story is not about seeking attention or validation. It is not about broadcasting your experiences to the world for the sake of approval. It is about living in alignment with your truth, whether or not anyone else is watching. It is about being honest with yourself and with those who matter most to you. It is about refusing to let shame or fear dictate your choices, and instead choosing to live with integrity and courage. End of poem. There will be times when owning your story feels like an uphill battle. You may face criticism, rejection, or misunderstanding. You may struggle with self-doubt or the lingering effects of past wounds. But it is in these moments that owning your story becomes even more important. When you stand firm in your truth, Despite the challenges, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than you think. You show yourself that your worth is not dependent on external circumstances, but on your internal resolve. Wow. Bob says, owning your story also requires a deep sense of self-compassion. It means forgiving yourself for the mistakes you've made and the times you've fallen short. It means acknowledging that you are a work in progress and that growth is a lifelong journey. Self-compassion allows you to embrace your imperfections without letting them define you. It gives you the grace to move forward, even when the path is difficult, and to celebrate your progress, no matter how small. To own your story is to embrace the complexity of your humanity. It is to recognize that you are not just one thing, not just your successes, your failures, or your roles. You are a mosaic of experiences, emotions, and identities, each piece contributing to the whole. When you own your story, you honor all of these pieces, even the ones that are hard to look at. You see yourself not as a collection of flaws or achievements, but as a whole, imperfect and beautiful human being. Who are you? Owning your story also means recognizing the power of choice. While you cannot change the past, you can choose how you respond to it. You can choose to let it define you, or you can choose to use it as a source of strength and wisdom. You can choose to carry the lessons forward while letting go of the pain. This is not an easy process, and it often requires support from others, whether through therapy, friendship, or community. But it is a choice that is always available to you, no matter what your story has been. One of the most transformative aspects of owning your story is the freedom it brings. When you stop hiding or apologizing for who you are, you free yourself from the burden of pretense. You no longer have to expend energy maintaining a facade or seeking approval. Instead, you can channel that energy into living authentically and pursuing what truly matters to you. This freedom is both empowering and exhilarating. You feel your truth, and when you feel it most strongly, when you get that energy, it allows you to step into your full potential and to create a life that is aligned with your values and dreams. Owning your story is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice. It requires you to show up for yourself, to make choices that align with your truth, and to keep moving forward, even when it's hard. It requires you to embrace the uncertainty of life and to trust that you are capable of handling whatever comes your way. And it requires you to be gentle with yourself, to recognize that growth takes time, and to celebrate the progress you make along the way. When you own your story, you become a source of inspiration for others. Your courage to live authentically encourages them to do the same. Your willingness to share your struggles reminds them that they are not alone. And your commitment to your truth serves as a powerful example of what it means to live with integrity. Owning your story is not just an act of self-love. It is a gift to the world. So no matter who's watching, own your story. Embrace it in its entirety with all its beauty and messiness. Stand in your truth even when it's uncomfortable. And remember that your story matters, not because it is perfect, but because it is yours. Owning your story takes courage, but it is a courage that transforms not just your life, but the lives of those around you. In owning your story, you step into the fullness of who you are, and that is a powerful, beautiful thing.